Welcome back, nerds. Fino here with a guide for Uesugi Kenshin, aka Super Kagetora. She's a limited 5-star ruler introduced in Guda Super Goyokak. Wielding an immensely powerful noble phantasm, she cleaves her opposition apart with ease. All you need is a little help from your buddy Castoria. Castoria. Deja vu. Biten Hatso Shiranui is a single target arts attack with preemptive full buff purge and anti-human attribute damage at a fixed percentage. Its overcharge is a single turn of a preemptive arts buff. This has pretty much everything you could reasonably want from a noble phantasm. If I could overtune the servant, a ramping steroid and NP level scaling on the anti-buff would be on the menu, but that's a pipe dream. The preemptive buff purge in particular gives Kenshin an overpowering effect against skill spammers. Ones that rely on cycling evades, invulns, and defense buffs find themselves stripped of their protection while ramping self buffers are suppressed, constantly getting sent back to square one where it's hard for them to make a counterattack. Doubly so because as a ruler, Kenshin takes half damage from moon cancers and 6 of the 7 standard classes. Naturally, your highest priority is to spam Shiranui as often as possible. To this end, you should level her second skill, White Flame. This is a 3-turn arts buff and stars per turn effect that, at level 10, also provides 50% charge. The one notable downside of this combination is that you're incentivized to use it on turn 1, but this limits your ability to effectively layer on support skills right off the bat. Unlike Buster Servants, arch attackers have much more flexibility in terms of how they charge up, with each Castoria doling out goodness in 20 and 30% increments, so having to use your biggest battery right away can be a bit of a nuisance. Another nutty tool is Bijamonten's Pagoda. This is a package of targeted buffs, attack and P gain, and 2 stages of overcharge. While the obvious play is to use this on Kenshin herself, since all those effects pair nicely with her noble phantasm, you'll have a tactical decision as it comes off cooldown. Remember that Castoria, the definitive art support, actually provides more stacks of anti-enforcement defense as she receives overcharge, so you can send this over to her when you're on the back foot, or you're about to break a boss's bar and you know they'll go apeshit. Lastly, Fate is in heaven, armor is in the chest, accomplishment is in the feet, groove is in the heart, is a skill whose name I'll only say once. What a mouthful. This is a 3-turn personal crit damage and star absorption buff with a 2-hit evade. The evade is not inconsequential, since Archetype Inception introduces a mechanic that can overpower invuln and anti-enforcement defense, but not evasion. The only enemies that currently possess this power are 2 specific moon cancers, therefore Kenshin is a pretty good check against this scenario. The other aspects of Skill 1 are a departure from her NP-focused gameplay, and you have to recognize that you're not going to be throwing around earth-shattering crits for the most part. You can lean into this aspect with Stardom CEs on your supports. Golden Catches the Carp is great for Castoria. So is King of the Seraph if you want income over a bulk payment, since she can use its overcharge. 2030 works for the supports. The primary benefit of getting stars on a Kenshin is that it helps her loop Shiranui. She's not Squirturia, so don't expect her to chain it raw. Just one of the things your typical single-target servant has to deal with. Some neat side elements of Kenshin's toolkit. She has a passive called Hozai Shin. This provides her 10% insta-kill resistance and purge resistance. While neither effect is decisive on its own, you'll occasionally just luck out and not have your buffs removed. This is nice against enemies that have unpredictable on-hit or skill-based versions of that effect. You can plan around noble phantasms and break bar mechanics with someone like Zhu Fu or Santa Nightingale, but it's often not worth tiptoeing around small, low-probability purges. Kenshin's Bond CE grants party arts and anti-human attribute buffs. While Bond CEs aren't usually worth equipping raw, the Japanese server introduced the Grand Servant mechanic where servant can equip 3 craft essences. A Universal CE, their Bond CE, and a Resource Increasing CE. You can also choose between using a Bond Craft Essence for its original effect or 50% starting charge. This is very interesting for Kenshin because Grand Servant duels, the only piece of content that currently allows Grand Servants, forces you to fight specific enemies with what are essentially monotype teams. Archers fight archers, berserkers fight berserkers, etc. But for extra class servants, they're bundled into 2 sets, Extra 1 and Extra 2, and they can choose to fight either a single target or AoE encounter. Kenshin wants the former, E-Flare Marie. Funny enough, she's human attribute, meaning that not only does Kenshin do bonus damage with her noble phantasm, but you can utilize her Bond CE's intended effect. Full disclosure though, I pretty much only fight Grand Marie since she's weak to moon cancers, while Flare Marie is neutral against Extra 1 servants. But you will find situations where Kenshin not only gets to work as a generalist attacker, but actually gains ground on her competition by virtue of being a ruler. The first major test of her power is Ordeal Call 3, Archetype Inception. This is a main story chapter with a heavy concentration of moon cancer enemies. Rulers are generally known for their defensive interactions, but they do possess offensive class advantage against stage 4 BB and friends. They're the cancer, she's the chemo. What helps her a lot in this chapter is that it's very boss-oriented, and most of the relevant fights are against single targets. This plays into her strengths, and while I won't play footage of them due to spoilers, let's just call them John Moon Cancer. She's one of the best options for the effective final boss of the chapter. She's also very good as the finisher for the extra boss, which starts as an AoE encounter before encouraging a surgical finish. The next time you'll really be able to push Kenshin's advantage is in Ordeal Call 4, Trinity Metatronius. Despite being a chapter where you overwhelmingly fight rulers, you're incentivized to use your own rulers, since they get a universal power mod. Mostly this favors AoE rulers like Melusine and Karen, due to the sheer number of mob encounters. But there are individual bosses that can benefit a bit from the good old 1-2 nya. That said, there are signs that not all is well. OC3, the same chapter that's supposed to be the one Kenshin obliterates, actually has a major fight against BB Dubai. The optimal attacker for this battle isn't Kenshin, but Summer Castoria, and one reason is that BB converts one of her break bars into a guts. While Kenshin may have some crit potential, Zerctoria's lingering anti-chaotic power mod is so strong that she can minimum turn both the regular fight and its roided up super recollection. The point of me bringing this up isn't to say that this makes Kenshin bad, but to illustrate that she's competing with some of the craziest and most overpowered servants in this game's history, and they came out before her. Both Draco and Zerctoria have such overtuned skill sets that even the mighty Kenshin doesn't quite measure up to their might. Kenshin hits most classes for strong but neutral damage, Castoria hits most of them for 1.5 times damage. Kenshin can take abuse from standard classes, Draco has similar durability, and Zerctoria can just spam anti-enforcement defense to block hits. Kenshin can pass overcharge to her teammates in multicore, Zerctoria can pass both overcharge and regular charge. Kenshin checks all the boxes for an amazing servant, but she's competing with godlike servants in the ultra-generalist single-target niche. She can one-up them in narrow situations, but if you've gone and blown your reserve funds for NP5 Summer Castoria, it really doesn't make sense to do the same for Kenshin when there's so much overlap. Now if you plan to go the distance for Kenshin, NP5 double 2k foes level 120, she'll get the job done. You can throw her at random shit and she can probably muddle through. At worst, she'll still fuck up the average boss. What you're getting is amazing. What you're not getting is the best. You like her? Good, there's plenty to like. But understand that there's an opportunity cost for pursuing her, and considering this year's alternatives, it's not favorable to her. If you plan to persist though, it's time to strategize. Start off with a set of crit damage command codes to strengthen your follow-up. Another valid addition is equipping the Da Vinci command code to her quick card to sequence in front of Kenshin's Noble Phantasm. As you tune your loadout for specific fights, consider White Vessel's command seal for cleanses and Major Flowers for flat charge. For craft essences, start with Ocean Flyer or Holy Knight suppress filler options until you get Black Rail for maximum NP damage. If you pick up another ending or formal craft in between those two stages, you can run them for Arts Crit and Arts Performance respectively. Servant coins are going to be a hot commodity for Kenshin. You obviously want a Pen 2 for starting charge. This lets you attack with just her personal battery and Castoria's attack buff. After that, grab a Pen 5 for cooldown reduction and a Pen 4 for crit damage, once they come out. If you plan to grail her though, I'd stop at a Pen 2 and then aim for 120, before pursuing the other upgrades. As far as teammates go, the usual suspects will suffice for most fights. Castoria as your main support, Jufu for purge resistance or as another game alternative, and Lady Avalon for longer fights or ones where you're leaning on your crits. You can also steal one of Zerctoria's friends and team up with Chen Gong. Having a 50% battery makes Kenshin workable for multi-core teams, and sending her overcharge buff to Chen Gong lets him massively increase his damage output. It's a useful strategy for 90+ and 90++ fights where you need to take out a single enemy wave early on. So do you plan to go hard for Kenshin, or are you saving your reserves for 2026? For my part, I'm going to be rolling for her on Sunday at twitch.tv/Finotaisen, also doing Grandcaster business while I'm at it. But I don't just stream on Sundays. This Friday I'll be playing some more Mario Kart World with subs, and on Saturday I'm returning to Pokemon XG, a ROM hack of XD Gale of Darkness with a physical special split, fairy type, and all sorts of odd modifications. 3 PM Pacific time is when it all kicks off. I'll see you there.